Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Dio from Red Diamond Mobile Auto Detailing. Today we are doing a 1987 BMW M6. Now this project is going to be into two different videos. The first video, which you're watching right now, is the paint restoration. We're going to do a complete full paint restoration, so this video is going to include how to prepare the car, how to diagnose it, then how to do the paint restoration steps. Each paint restoration for each vehicle, there is no, step 1, step 2, step 3 kind of deal. Each vehicle is, unique to its own. Each paint's different. So this is the kind of the interesting thing about paint restorations, because you've got thousands of pads that you can choose from, thousands of products, and you basically have to mix and match and find that unique code to the paint to restore it the proper way. Because in our field, of course, we don't want to be too aggressive and take too much paint off that we don't need to, but we also have to keep time, because time is money in our minds. So we obviously don't want to try to polish out deep scratches when we can go to a compound. So you just got to find that even ground. Each video is going to be probably around 30 minutes. It's going to be a lot of information. I'm really excited. So let's go ahead and get started. Alright, so first step, let's diagnose the paint, okay? Now, I just want to let you guys know that when a customer calls and they're talking about paint restoration, I do not give prices over the phone, because you're going to handcuff yourself to a price without seeing a car beforehand. Now, if it's like a basic wash or, interior, exterior detail, something like that, let's just say I'm Joe's, car cleaning, and somebody calls me, I can go, yeah, it's anywhere between $50 and $80, and that's okay. You can kind of give yourself that range. But with paint restorations, it's a whole different game. Not only do you not know what degree of damage is done to the paint, but number two, you really want to get an expectation of the customers. This is what gets detailers in trouble all the time, and this is kind of why I do these YouTube videos, is because in detailing, there's really no understanding of like terminology. I don't know how many times I've had people call me and go, yeah, I want to get my car buffed and waxed. Well, a lot of times people don't know buffing means paint restoration. They think buffing means shining. So things like that, there's just kind of a lot of misconceptions, a lot of myths, and a lot of misunderstandings in the detailing field. So definitely, if you're a detailer, make sure that you know what your customer's asking for, and definitely set an expectation, because the more work you need to do, obviously the more you should get paid. So you need to have an understanding, meet your customer in the middle, from how much work you want to do to how much money they want to pay. Of course, all detailers, we want to walk away from the paint completely perfect, but of course that's not always the case. That's not what the customer wants to spend. So you got to kind of meet them in the middle, from how much they want to spend to how much you want that car to look perfect. Meet them in the middle. So of course, when I come and I do a price quote, I don't know if there's silicones or solvents or waxes or anything that's on the paint, especially dirt, grime, road debris, all that stuff. These are blocking the naked paint. So before I give an exact price, I'm going to wash the paint with dish soap. Now, again, here's that misconception. It's washing your car with dish soap. What it does is it pulls all of those waxes off the car, because the dish soap is very aggressive. And this is why I use the ammo car soaps, the regimen, on the paint, because they're delicate enough to not pull the waxes off, but they're not, I don't want to say aggressive, but they're strong enough to pull the dirt away. They foam all the dirt lifted from the paint, and then you wash it right off, leaving the waxes still intact. So again, don't lock yourself into a price. I wash the car before I give a price. You don't have to, but I do. And then third is lighting. Never give a price quote in the garage. Always pull the car out, because the garage is the garage lighting can be very deceiving. The paint will look not that bad, and of course when we're detailing paint, we're going to be detailing it in the garage because the heat messes with the buffing cycle. So when we're detailing it inside, of course, always pull it outside and double check before you give it to the customer, because if you give it to the customer in the garage, they're going to go, oh my god, it looks amazing, and then they're going to pull it outside and then the paint looks trashed. So natural lighting is definitely better than fluorescent lighting. So I don't care what kind of flashlight you got, definitely trust the sun. That's going to be your best lighting source. And again, a lot of information to cover on this video, so I'm sorry if I'm kind of skipping around, but there's just a lot to cover. Okay, so a couple questions that we need to ask. What year is it? And this is basically going to tell you if it's got clear coat on it or if it's single stage paint. These are two different ways of detailing this car, and you need to know that. Is it the original owner? Because if it's the original owner, use that. That is a source of information. Use as much information as you can from the customer, as much as they know. You know, has it had body damage work because it got in a wreck? Has it been repainted? Blah, blah, blah. All these questions. You need to ask everything about this paint. Next thing we're going to talk about is hard paint versus soft paint. And I'm going to show you how to test that. We're going to test that in the rear passenger side quarter panel. This is the most, it's not the most obvious spot. I'm definitely not going to do it on the hood where the customer's going to see it every day when they drive. I'm going to do it where the customer doesn't see it. But this is where we're going to test how we're going to assess the paint. There are thousands of different products out there, thousands of different pads, you know, thousands of different machines. You have to find the right combination for the paint, this is where it gets really, really interesting. When I first started detailing, I thought it was really simple. It's just car cleaning. Absolutely not, especially when it comes to paint restoration. There is so much to know about paint restoration. It's insane, and it's definitely a challenging job. Whether you're a weekend warrior or you do this for a living, paint restoration is definitely, there's a lot to know. So we ask the customer, what year is it? If it's single stage paint, clear coat paint, has it been repainted? Has there been body work done to it? All of this information definitely is going to help us when it comes to the detailing. So now we're going to wash it. This is where we're going to get the paint naked. This is where we can assess the damage. We can kind of guess how much time it's going to take, how much product it's going to take us, how long it's going to take us, and we can go from there. Now, if you are unfamiliar with the 3-bucket system, here it is. One bucket is used for only paint soap, another, clean water, and the last being for the wheels. Fill your wheel bucket with wheel soap, then put some on the mitt and a good amount inside. Fill with water to activate the suds to create a thick foam. The second bucket is going to be just used for clean water. The third we're going to use for the paint. Instead of putting paint soap in though, we're going to use dish soap. This will strip any waxes or silicones left on the paint. Let's first clean the wheels. Lightly rinse the wheel wells, tires, and wheels with water to wash away any loose debris or brake dust. Apply wheel cleaners on the wheels and tires to loosen brake dust and iron deposits. While the product is working, scrub the wheel well with your wheel well brush to loosen road debris and mud from around the tire. Then scrub the tire with your tire brush, getting any mud or previous tire shine off. Take your spoke brush and agitate the contaminants from inside the wheel, pulling it forward. Next, the lug nuts. Clean it with a small, soft bristle brush to get in between the lug itself and the wheel. Then take your mitt and thoroughly wash inside the wheel and outside. To make sure you don't have any contaminants between the tire and the wheel, scrub the tire one last time. Just like the wheels, lightly rinse down the paint to wash away any loose contaminants. Next, use your foam gun and wash mitt filled with dish soap to wash down the paint. The dish soap will emulsify the wax and leave the paint naked. Once the car is washed, let's move it into the garage. Alright guys, so we got the car washed, we got it stripped, we used the dish soap that's going to emulsify the wax, pull all that wax off the solvents and the silicones, the waxes, all that, you know, that was originally the paint, but it's old, got to get it off. So now the paint is naked, so that means that there's no products on the paint that would hide the scratches. The only thing that's left, because again, we're not going to stop there, we're going to clay bar the car. And I know I've talked to you guys a lot about clay bars and how to use them. I guarantee there's a video here on the YouTube channel somewhere, but just real quick, I left the water on the car. I haven't dried it yet because I'm going to use that as lubrication for my clay bar. Now you can use liquid wax, or you can use, spray waxes or any kind of like lubrication that comes with the clay to save product. I try not to use it if I don't have to. There was a video where we did, I believe it was a 68 mg, somewhere in that year, 67 mg. Where it was inside, it was pouring down rain outside, and that's where we had to use liquid wax to detail the car. But like I said, I'm going to go ahead and use the water And this is what we're going to do. We're going to run it through the entire paint, and we're really going to make sure that we get all the contaminants, the debris, anything that's stuck in the pores of the paint. We're going to really get that cleaned up so that when we're detailing, or when we're buffing, there's nothing that's going to be pulled off the paint that necessarily couldn't have been pulled off by either clay bar or our wash mitt. We really don't want to dirty our pads while we're detailing, because that actually messes with our buffing cycle. Because of the debris stuck in the pad that's now chiseling away at the paint, makes it uneven. Some of the debris or the oxidation that's stuck in the pores of the paint that we could easily got out by clay bar is now actually buffing the paint while we're running through the cycle. I'm going to show you when we're detailing that. When you're doing paint correction, your number one thing that should be in mind, obviously, you're not blowing through the paint, making sure you're on the right pad, making sure you're going through the motions, etc., etc. Yes, that's all good and great, but really one thing that slips people's mind, and I didn't even know about this until, again, I was taught this, is your debris buildup. When you're removing clear coat, that's what you're doing when you're leveling paint. You're removing clear coat. There's no such thing as pulling out scratches. I hear that a lot. You're actually leveling the clear coat to remove those scratches. When you're doing that, you're pulling off clear coat. So now you have clear coat in your pads. That is debris buildup. That now is kind of battling with your either polish or compound, and in lack of a better terms, kind of becomes part of a compound or a polish, just a very uneven abrasive. So you have to really, once you do a couple passes, you have to blow out your pads and clean your pads. Now there are many different ways to do this. There's their brush style, there's the water style. They've got buckets where you can actually dunk them in and spin the machine on these grit guards that clean the pads. I like to use air, compressed air. I think that's the best way, but again, there are many different ways out there. But all that aside, we're going to get this paint as clean as possible before we start removing paint. Because again, just like the wheels, when we rinse down the wheels, we rinse down the paint. Why make our products battle something that can be easily pulled off? So we're going to really kind of be really sure when we're running through this paint and really hit all areas. Really just kind of take your time, make sure you got everything out. Now I just did this pass. This is a brand new clay bar that I just pulled out of the packet. I don't know if you can see that on camera. Let me actually turn around. Look how dirty that is already. And we just did that section of the roof. If we did not do this, our pad and our product would be battling this. No need for that. So we're going to clay the paint, make sure it's really clean. Then we're going to dry it. Then we're going to inspect it. Coming up. All right, guys. So we've clayed the paint. Now we washed it with dish soap. That pulled all of the debris off, all the waxes and things like that. Then we clayed it. This is going to pull off all the oxidation and all of the contaminants on the pores of the paint I wanted to show you. Now, of course, we really went to town with claying this car. Really wanted to make sure this paint's clean. But just to show you real quick, and again, I want to get on this side of the camera so I can show you, make sure it comes up on camera. This is what it came out to be. This is all contaminants from the pores of the paint. So now, paint is completely clean. You can actually take your hand, and you don't hear that shh. It's a really soft, kind of a, like if you rubbed really fine sandpaper, just kind of that shh, that kind of sound, that kind of texture. That's what this paint feels like. Now it feels like glass. So we're gonna dry it, and then we're gonna go ahead and start. We're gonna do our test spot. So the prep is done. What have we done? So we did the wheels, right? We're going to detail the car like we would just a regular exterior detail. So we cleaned the wheels. We washed the paint. Now we washed it with dish soap, not car soap. We want to emulsify the wax, pull all of that that sealant off, all that wax. We want to get the paint naked. Next, we clay barred it, get all the contaminants out of the pores of the paint, and really make sure that that paint is super slick, super clean. There's nothing in our way from looking at this paint. Then we dried it. So now the paint is dried, we pulled it outside, and we're inspecting it. Okay, this again, like I said, the best way to look at it, don't do it in the garage, do it outside where it's real bright, real sunny. If it's overcast or anything like that, you know, use as much light as you possibly can to really see this paint before you give any kind of estimate or anything like that, because if you get in here and it's more than you thought it was, you've locked yourself into a price, and you don't want to do that. You want to have some wiggle room as an owner of a business. You know, don't put yourself in a cell to where you'll end up losing money. So I'm looking at the car, and it doesn't look that bad. It's got a lot of love marks, just real shallow scratches all over from like automatic car washes or improper washing and drying from other detailers. But I'm going to pull the camera in. I'm going to show you kind of what I'm talking about. Let me go ahead and do that now. So we're going to use the sun, and hopefully this camera picks it up. So here's our light. I don't know, if you can see all those? There you go. See all those scratches, those love marks or swirls? It's just from automatic car washes and things like that. And it's pretty consistent throughout the paint. Here's the trunk, and it's the same kind of deal. So when I'm looking at this kind of paint, of course, I'm thinking to myself, you know, let's go the least aggressive, right? Anytime you do anything, clean leather, you're doing interior stain removal, you're washing paint, anything like that, you're going to start at the least aggressive. You know, obviously, you don't want to skip some steps and go way too aggressive, pull too much paint off, anything like that. So we're going to start, like I said, a test spot, which is, over here. We're going to do passenger side rear quarter panel. This is where we're going to do our test spot. So we're going to tape it off. We're going to see what combination of products and pads and torque, things like that, what combination is necessary for this paint. Now, because this has all been repainted and there's not any kind of, like it wasn't wrecked and a quarter panel had to be just repainted, and it might be a different paint depth or something like that. The whole paint's uniform. So what's going to work on that quarter panel should 90% work on the rest of the car. There's not too many times where you have to do anything special. Once you find that, you know, that combination, boom, you've locked it in. You're good to go for the rest of the car. So now that we've seen everything, we know how to start addressing it. We're going to pull it back in the garage. Make sure the paint is cool. If you can't put your hand on it, see, it's too hot right now for me to leave my hand on it. It's too hot. You want to make sure it's around 80 degrees. That's really for anything. If you're detailing it outside and you're washing it and it's over 100 degrees, like it is now because it's super hot here in Florida, your paint's probably around 140, 150 degrees, which means anything that comes in contact with it is going to evaporate super quick. That's where watermarks come in. But that goes with anything, with your products and things like that. Once they touch that paint, they just evaporate. So really, and I know you can't always do it, but it's ideal, definitely get the paint around 80 degrees. So let's pull it in. We'll go ahead and start on that test spot.
Now, to understand how paint restoring works, let's first look at the different levels of paint. There's the substrate or body panel, primer coat, color base coat, and clear coat. New paint will reflect 100% of the light back to your eye, much like a mirror, but over time, with poor washing and drying techniques, scratches will be introduced to the clear coat, making the rays reflect dull and in unpredictable directions. Now, when the paint is waxed, it temporarily fills these scratches, bringing yet again a smooth surface, allowing the paint to look new. But over time, from the sun's UV rays and washing the paint, the wax degrades, revealing the once hidden scratches. Waxing scratched paint is a perfect non-permanent solution, but we are looking for a more permanent look. So today, we will be restoring and leveling the paint. Here is how buffing looks. For love marks or shallow scratches, polishing your paint will be enough. For deeper scratches, compounding the paint will be more aggressive in getting out deeper scratches, then polishing to leave the paint smooth and reflective.
Okay, so if you're a weekend warrior or you're just starting your business, paint restoration can be very, very intimidating because there's thousands of different types of pads, thousands of different types of products, thousands of different types of tools. So how do you kind of narrow it down? Well, Meguiar's came out with a very, very simple system. Okay, basically you've got jeweler's polish, compound. Very simple. So with jeweler's polish, it's not really where you start, it's usually where you finish. Okay, what I mean by that is if you're doing a paint restoration, you're most likely going to start with a polish. This is going to get the scratches out that are embedded in the paint. And then you're going to finish off with the jeweler's polish, which is going to get all of the scratches that might have been left with the polish out, leaving that nice mirror finish. Now, here's what I mean by like the halfway system. Now, of course, like I said, you've got your compound and you've got your polish. But we're going to start with the quarter panel, and we're going to start with a polish, and we're going to start with a polishing pad. Now, if I need something that's got a little bit more bite, but I don't think it doesn't constitute going to a compound and a compounding pad, what I might do is I might use a compounding pad with the polish and seeing if that pad might work with the paint, or vice versa. I might go to the compound but stay with the polishing pad. So there's that halfway kind of rule where sometimes you don't need to go a full step to do what you need to do. Sometimes you just need to go a half step by switching some of these pads up. But this definitely narrows the field out and kind of gives you a better, more controlled idea of how to approach detailing paint that you've never detailed before when it comes to paint restoration. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the pads. So here right now we have, this is a jeweler's polish pad. Now, if you can see, it's very, very soft. It's very open-celled, a lot of air gets through it, and it gives a lot of padding when you're polishing the paint, because you don't want to have a lot of pressure. Basically, the thickness of the pad is equal to how much power is being actually put into the paint. If there's a pad, usually like a microfiber cutting pad, such as this one, it's not really that much pad. You can see that there's a difference. Why? There's more power being applied to the paint when you're using a cutting pad. Plus, of course, because of the microfibers, it's tearing more paint, more of that dead paint off, and definitely doing quicker of a job, which is not necessarily what you need all the time. So anyways, open celled, more pad, definitely is going to equal less power being applied directly to the paint. This one is a polishing pad, a little bit more closed celled, still about the equal thickness of the jeweler's polish pad, but it's a little more closed celled, so it's a little bit firmer. It's still soft, but a little firm. All right, here we go, is the compounding pad. Now, this is super closed cell and is very, very firm, and you can see clearly, I mean, I can almost bend this one in half, whereas this one takes a little bit more power. This is going to, it's got more of a bite to it, so it's going to tear more paint off. And then, of course, if you really need to get aggressive, you've got microfiber cutting pads. This is more of like a polished microfiber cutting pad. And this would be like if I had like a single stage paint that had a lot of oxidation. I'm not going to sit there with polish and waste my time. I'm going to really get in there and really get the job done. This is definitely going to have more bite to it. And then you've got like a compounding microfiber cutting pad, which is a thinner foam, more power, right? Okay, so with the compounds and the polish, basically very simple. Compound has bigger and thicker abrasives, which is going to pull more of the paint off. Think of it like a low grit sandpaper, essentially, is what it is, liquid sandpaper, basically. So this is lower number grit sandpaper, and then this is a higher grit sandpaper, essentially. It's just smaller abrasives and kind of just levels the paint out after you've compounded it. So again, you've got all of these systems, right? Sometimes you go halfway. Basically, it just makes the system a lot easier, especially for weekend warriors, guys starting their business. The McGuire's paint correction system is definitely the way to go. So let's go ahead and get over here and start on this corner panel. All right, so what you're gonna do is you're gonna take your tape, right? Peel the section off. Then what you'll do, because you want just enough glue to basically where it'll stick on the paint, but you don't want enough to where you'll have residue on there, because again, we're trying to make sure that we don't have contaminants while we're buffing, okay? Glue is another thing that you just don't want it stuck on your pad while you're trying to buff the paint. So just take it and put it on your thigh like that, and this is gonna peel off that excess glue that you really don't need. You basically just wanna lightly lay it on there, just enough to where you kind of get just a guide like that. It's not really on there, it's just enough to where it'll stay. So we're gonna go ahead and take that off. So boom, here's our section. Let's go ahead. We're gonna start off with a foam polish pad. It's the least aggressive pad. We're gonna start off with a polish. Okay, now because of the scratches, I know we don't need to start off with a jeweler's polish. We can skip that, okay? The scratches are deep enough to where they don't need that. But is the paint soft or hard? That's what we're testing. Because if it's soft, a polish may be all you need.
Now before we start restoring, we need to prime our pads with polish. With all new buffing pads, you need to prime the pores of the pad with polish. You only need to do this once, and after priming the pad, apply polish evenly around the pad. Then, using a low-level RPM, massage the product around the area you are working on. This is just to ensure even distribution. You are not polishing just yet. Then, when the area is evenly covered in polish, up the RPM and start the buffing cycle. Using the hash technique, start slowly correcting the paint. I am showing you live footage to demonstrate how slow you should move your arms. The biggest problem people have with paint correction is not allowing enough time for the product to work. It is not so much about manpower, just giving the polish enough time to start working. So work slow and be patient when doing paint corrections. So our test panel showed us that the paint will be restored with a polish pad and a polish abrasive. That tells us that this is soft paint. The paint transfer onto the pad also tells us that this is single stage paint, meaning that there is no clear coat.
Okay, now that we've done our test button, we realized that the paint is soft. We're going to use a polish pad and a polish abrasive. I've taped everything off on the vehicle, so we're going to go ahead and we're just going to start top to bottom. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the roof, I'm going to do the hood, the trunk, and then I'm going to do this section. Let me come over here so I can show you. This section, okay, see where this tape line is? I'm going to do all this right here, and then my last pass I'm going to do underneath. Okay, so after all of this is done, and then of course we're gonna do the chip correction, which is the second part of this project. Before I do the paint restoration, I'm gonna go through and I'm gonna very carefully, I'm gonna circle with a paint pen all of the chip marks that I'm gonna fix, because of the fact that I don't want to take my buffer and go across that chip mark, because that paint it'll pull up that paint. So I'm gonna circle that chip mark pretty big. I'm gonna give it a pretty big radius, even if it's a small chip. I'm gonna do, you know, a pretty big circle, because I don't want to go anywhere near that until I fill that chip in. Then tomorrow, or maybe the next day, maybe 24 to 48 hours, I'll come back when it's cured, and then we'll re-level the paint and we'll address it if we need to fill it in again or not. But we're gonna do the majority of the paint restoration today, avoiding all of the areas that I'm going to circle, and then we'll start on the chips.
So now that the majority of the paint is restored, the next thing that we need to do is repair the chips, fill them in, and blend the paint together. I hope you enjoyed this video on paint restoration. Click the link below to watch the second part of this 22-hour paint correction project. And as always, thank you very much, and I'll see you out in the field.